and welcome to Stay in Your Lane, a recap and review podcast about Serial Experiments Lain. Today we are covering Layer 07, Society. I am your host, Luca Masi. With me is my co-host, Fefner Masamune.
You have only so many lanes in this life. Only one or two will last. You go through all the lane and strife, then you turn your back and they're gone so fast. Oh yeah.
Alice.
I once knew a girl named Lain who didn't like being in the rain. Something, 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 something limerick joke.
That's not an bop lyric.
And Jenner.
Did you know that you can end every haiku with the word refrigerator because it has 7 syllables in it? I did. I was going to do a haiku about Lain and end it with refrigerator, but I didn't know that we were going to do this bit, and I didn't write it down, and everybody got through their introduction too quick for me to make one. So fuck, hi, I'm gay. Let's all love Lain.
This was a lot more cohesive
in
the last podcast, but it was just Fefner and I.
Yes. Yeah, you also, you changed up how you do the intros, so I was like, oh, he's not going to introduce anybody. I wanted this on the podcast. I don't know where. Somebody sent me a screenshot of a MMORPG. I'm not sure which one. I think it was Guild Wars. Something of that nature, where people were ERPing in private messages, but one of them accidentally sent their ERP emote in the public channels, and the person who did that's name was Let's All Love Lain.
I can't believe this. You're horny on Maine and you disrespected Lain.
Their name was Let's All Love Lain. Maybe they were just loving Lain. Maybe that's what loving Lain looks like.
Maybe they're just Lane on Main, you don't know.
Yeah, they're Lain on Main.
Anyways, today's episode's opening monologue is I'll tell you, but it's just between you and me. I'll tell you what's happening in this society. What's beginning, just because you don't know about it. I'm gonna be honest, for a while I thought that I was starting to understand what these meant, and now I'm lost again. Now I don't know what this is talking about.
We live in a society.
I mean, yeah, but afterwards we pan across Lane Street, and we can see that part of Lane's setup is leaking outside of the house.
It's not liquid. It's the setup. There's just wires and
shit. The parts.
I love how it gets more and more eldritch.
Mm-hmm. Just imagine walking out in the morning, you look to your neighbor's house, and there are just computer wires jutting from a very large portion of the house. After this, we cut to Lain at her computer. She says, "No, that's not it. I'm just watching. I mean, the me in the wired is right. She's becoming less and less like me." So I feel like this is a near universal thing, where after you've been on the internet for a while, you realize you might not be carrying yourself online the way you do in real life. We've already talked about this on this podcast.
What do you realize?
Mika shows up to Lane's room and babbles a bit before leaving. She doesn't say a single coherent thing. It's just,
Hey, Lane, don't have a soul anymore anyway, bye.
One of my notes here is just, Japan does not give a shit about lip syncing. This is something that has been pointed out to me by voice actors, is that only native English speakers are super concerned with lip syncing matching. The countries that do not speak English, it's far less important that the lips actually match.
Is that really true?
You know...
Well, the thing is, I would bet money that Japan does not care, because the lip syncing for Mika's babbling in this scene doesn't match up. And it's animated there. They could have done the voice acting first and then animated it later to match it up if they cared about it.
It also would not surprise me if we're the most pedantic about anything.
Most anime is dubbed in Japanese after it's animated, if I understand it correctly.
Oh, I did not know that. I confess I kind of never thought about it.
Yeah, because like people who watch subs aren't actually listening to the dialogue half the time. They're too busy reading the subtitles. So they're not noticing that, hey, they just made a buzz sound, but their lips didn't close. So you also have Lain does not know what happened to Mika. And when she tries to talk to the people on the internet about it, the people on the internet tell her that whatever conclusion she's reached is wrong. Lain doesn't know, and the people on the internet are trying to keep her from finding out. Anyways, we cut to the real first thing that we can talk about. VR guy. I think his name is Nezumi, which is rat in Japanese. Is just a dude in a VR headset rambling about why to join the Knights as he walks down a crowded street in his VR headset while online. He says, "I could exist anywhere on the wired while being in physical space. which like internet capable phones exist in this anime. This is not special. We see people with portable internet capable phones in the anime. I think you're
This
overhyping yourself, my guy.
this is either just the result of being terminally online, or it's just a very weird contrast to Lain, who also exists in both the wired and in the real world, except this guy really isn't doing it as well. He looks like a dork.
So I did want to point out a couple of things about this guy. He is wearing what's called the gargoyle setup from Snow Crash. Snow Crash was a very early cyberpunk book.
Snow Crash? I feel like I've heard of that.
Yeah, it gets referenced from time to time. I think this is what like the they're not quite mooks. It's closer to like the agents from the Matrix is their threat level, if I understand it correctly. The gargoyles wear this kind of setup so that they can be online and in real life at the same time because the author just nobody saw smartphones coming. Anyways, to me, the best thing about Snow Crash is that the main character is named Hero Protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
The author wrote that down as a placeholder name and then decided he couldn't think of a better name, so he just went for it. And also, the web browser that I know his name is Nesby, but I keep calling him Hero Protagonist. The web browser that Hero is using is an actual web browser developed by Apple that is called Hot Sauce.
You said hot sauce? I
Yeah,
wish mine was called hot sauce. That's awesome.
yeah. It is a shaky, clashing nightmare. Like you'll notice the hyperlinks kind of jiggle in place. Apparently, that's accurate to the actual web browser.
Question:
It was
Why?
trying to show like
Like, was that on purpose or is it
ew,
horribly flawed?
So they could.
that was on purpose. They were trying to show like a visual representation of how the net is connected because you could like see
Oh, so
the
they wiggle
branches
so
and
you can
connections. You
see
could see the
that's
hyperlinks and things,
right. Okay, I see it now. It's
but
dumb, but I get it.
it just doesn't look fun.
No.
Like the Unix thing in Jurassic Park that everyone makes fun of, with that just has a 3D model of the park in it that you navigate. That's real. That's an actual thing you can do with Unix. It's basically set up to look cool, and it actually does look cool. This is supposed to look cool, but it looks awful.
Seems bad.
Anyways, after this brief scene with Hiro, we cut to an office with a CEO. The CEO's secretary tells him that the banquet is going on. The CEO stares directly at the secretary's legs, and he says he'll be down in 3 minutes. And I added, I'll be finished by then.
Oh my god.
Because he's been on screen for 10 seconds and we know he's 40.
Christ.
It's like then the lady does the killer instinct leg. Whoa, 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 whoa! The lady does the killer instinct leg cross and uncross thing from the movie Killer Instinct. I just wanted to point that out. There, you can continue.
Did that not happen in Fatal
Like
Attraction?
this is where the lady is, right? It is okay. It's Fatal Attraction. Sorry, it was that. It was one of those.
I can't remember.
Yeah,
I didn't even realize Killer Instinct was a
it
movie.
might not have been. No, I think you're right. I think it was Fatal Attraction. I got the name of the thing wrong.
Is it the same movie where the lady boils a rabbit?
I think so. Yeah, she's like it's like it's
Okay,
a very
that was Fatal Attraction.
it's a very mimetic scene where the lady, I forget her name, but it like went all over for being super too horny and giving that movie like
Mhm.
a bigger, deeper rating just for that because sex bad, folks. She sits down in front of the sky and then like uncrosses and then recrosses her legs and it's like apparently super horny.
Yeah,
Anyway, this lady does the same thing. That's all.
yes, very reference heavy
Yeah.
episode. But yes, the CEO checks his email. The email has a bunch of weird dialogue in it and it has a logo. And the CEO says, "What game this time?" I'm not going to try and describe the logo, but I am just going to cut to the chase. It's the logo for the Knights. This is what the Knights of Eastern Calculus use as their logo. So now I'm just going to call it the Knights logo instead of trying to remember what it looks like and failing. We get a scene of Lain at the class. Lain is not paying attention in class. She is browsing the internet. Alice is looking at her slightly concerned.
Real Alice is also
Which-
concerned about Lain.
During my undergrad, I had during my last year, I had one professor that was like, he was a dick, but he also, in addition to being just a general jackass, was like super pissy about people working on other things in his class, to the point where he threw somebody out of a classroom because he was working on something else in Excel. The guy in the front row, ahead of where I was sitting, spent the entire class on the Dragon Ball subreddit, and the professor never noticed.
What a legend.
So I cannot remember the professor's name, but I know he was fired after that semester, and like, good, he deserved it. Fuck him. If you're gonna be an asshole, you better have the skills to back it up, because otherwise, you're just an asshole, and there's no reason to keep you around. Anyways, we then cut to Gabe Newell's apartment, where a very heavyset man is on the internet and refusing to get out of bed. Relatable.
Very relatable.
Um, oh god, I forgot to write down where, but somewhere in the apartment is the same logo as the CEO's email, the Knights logo. And he's just saying generic, I'm better than all you bozos dialogue. I just wanted to point out that the English dub actually gave this character a voice appropriate. Sounds like your typical fat nerd character. The Japanese voice sounds like a monster of the week from a Toku show, and I don't know why. I don't know why they decided, yeah, this guy should have a genuinely intimidating voice. We then cut to the roof of the school, either during lunch or after school. Lain is pressed up against the bars, looking past the roof onto the ground below. She says the real world isn't real after all. Alice doesn't hear this, but she is here to check on Lain. Alice says, lately you've been slipping into your old habits. We started taking you out with us because we thought it would make you happy. Honestly. But if it makes you uncomfortable, we'll stop. At this point, Lain gets very, very, very upset and says, no, that's not it. I was having fun. I had a great time.
I had fun every time having a person kill themselves in front of me. That was fun. Have it. Girl kiss, gay baiting. The gay baiting is happening,
Yeah,
folks.
let's say at this point, Jenner is howling and screaming and demanding certain things happen.
The
Do it, do
cut
it, you,
the cut
do it, you
the
cowards.
cuts in perspective here are very weird to me. Um, in that Lane goes from one side of the screen to the other in a kind of unconventional way, and then we get like the
They break the 180 rule.
yeah, like it's always fascinating how this show is consistently just fucking with how you would normally do cuts. Like
As
why
a
would
girl who has in my life dated another girl, I can tell you that this is what it is like to be attracted to and in love with another girl. Sometimes you're just somewhere else because of weird cuts while you're hanging out with your crush.
it's just like so every now and then the editors like separate you through odd cuts
Yeah.
that have you like 60% 60-degree angles in the screen or like close-ups that are way too close.
Sometimes you're just drawn off model and you just gotta power through it. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Alice. Do go on.
Yeah, I was just saying like I kind of like how I like how Lane sometimes just gives you weird cuts and weird angles of shots just to be weird. Just to like throw you off. Like
Yep.
nothing deep there. It's just they're throwing you off because it provides it helps the show create the emotional effect that it's wanting to. It wants you to feel a little
You
confused all the time, so it just randomly has Lane's face way too big in the shot and with the weirdest half smile ever, just because it's weird.
you have to be uncomfortable or the show doesn't make sense.
I mean, kinda.
You'll never understand what's happening if you aren't super uncomfortable. You have to sit in one of those gimmick theater chairs that like hooks you in the back. But yes, once Alice takes her hand, Lane no longer looks like she's on the verge of tears.
That's the power.
She says,
of
thank
girl
you for
holding your
worrying
hand
about
when
me.
you
And
are
Alice says, of course,
when you
that's
are
what
gay.
friends are for, right?
Yeah, just friends, just gals being pals here.
I have to defend the dub. I listened to the Japanese dub. Alice says Tomodachi, so it's not the dub changing things. That line is there in all versions of the show, to my knowledge.
Yeah, isn't that? I mean, that's also something they use in Utah too. But
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, like, Jenner, you seem really upset about this. Like, friends can become
They
girlfriends. That
can.
happens all the
It
time.
has. It has
I
happened
mean,
in my life. And look, sometimes it is okay to just be friends with a girl and not make it romantic. You're allowed to be friends with girls. But when you don't already have a significant other and there's obviously an attraction and spark between you and another girl, in my opinion, go for it. Quit it. There are 3 girls in my DMs. 2 of them have crushes on each other. I'm dying. All of them asking me for relationship advice. I'm dying. Just tell girl, hi, I like you as more than a friend. Is it possible that you could also maybe be interested in being more than a friend with me? If not, that's cool. We can just stay friends. But I would like to stop yearning now, please.
I have to admit that it is not impossible. Like it's not difficult to read some of Alice's, specifically Alice's actions, as being like through a queer lens. It's not
Mm-hmm.
hard. Lane is
Yeah,
Lane is also easy to do that with, but for very different reasons for me. Whereas Alice is very easy, just straightforward. Her interest is very obviously friendly, but it can also very easily be read as I care about you in a romantic sense as well. And it is kind of neat to me looking at that
I
and
believe you
reading
mean
it that
queer
way.
forward.
Wah wah.
Yeah, I guess so. Law.
I mean, like, yeah, like again, if this was a common thing in a lot. Like, you could read this as just a genuine, empathetic girl who just really does care about Lane as a friend, and you could, and that's fine. But just as Alice is saying, and I agree, a lot of what like the in show Alice is doing is also behavior that you would do if you were a girl who is actually attracted to this other girl and you're trying to sort yourself out. Like, you're trying to deepen your relationship with this girl to see if like there's anything, and you're having those very does she like me or is she just being friendly to me kind of lesbian problems that lesbians constantly have. Like, a lot of what Alice was doing even in the early episodes, I was like, this is what I would do if I had a crush on a girl. Like, I would be doing this too. This is just, and that's why I was like, I'm just gonna make Alice be the one to talk about Alice, because I would just be talking about how Alice is gay the entire time.
It is definitely easier in this episode to read it than some of the other ones.
Yeah.
Like it just seems super obvious.
Yeah. Like, look, you
Mhm.
don't just reach over and take somebody's hands if you don't have a crush on them.
Uh, for those of you keeping track at home, the trilogy of weird ass animes is 3 for 3 for queer subtext.
Mm-hmm.
Before we move on, I do want to say, like, it's with some media, it's easy to say physical contact does not necessarily mean anything else. But I do know from watching a lot of anime and talking about a lot of anime on podcasts, and just this exact thing coming up a bunch. Physical contact, if you're saying in North America, most cultures in North America are pretty okay with physical contact between friends, and it's like a normal, very normal thing. Those rules are a little different in Japan, not entirely different, but a little different. And it's always useful to keep in mind that Japanese culture is a little less big on physical contact than some of ours cultures are. So that's significant. It is significant that grasped grasped Lane's
Yeah,
hand
I
with
mean,
both hers. Like that is kind of interesting.
Mhm.
It
I
implies if
get.
nothing else that she is it reinforces if nothing else that she is super friendly and also that she's a little energetic. I
Yeah, I
guess
mean, like,
keen.
yeah. 2 things. So, one thing I want to talk about, completely unrelated to that, this is gay, is that this is also Alice being able to touch and grab Lane. Like, is very important for me to see, and maybe all of you to recognize as well. Which is like, I wasn't actually sure Lane was real up until this episode. Like, nobody ever like hugs her. Nobody who I think is also not a simulation ever hugs her or touches her or holds her hand or like puts their hand on her shoulder or anything like that. Nobody physically interacts with Lain. And so I was like, is she just like a projection, an avatar? Like, is she even physically there? Right? Or is she just like scrambled code that we're seeing? Does that make sense? Like, again, anybody
that
who
makes sense.
touches
That is
her,
weird.
like, yeah, anybody who touches her before this was basically like her parents, who I don't think are real, her sister, who I don't think are real. Like,
I
nobody,
don't. Did any of those people
like, and
actually
yeah,
touch
like,
her at
I
all?
even know, like, I'm not sure if anybody ever physically touched her until this episode, and there's no way Alice is not a real person. So the fact
I don't think
that,
they have,
yeah,
or if
the
they have,
fact
it's
that,
been very brief.
yeah, it's been very brief if it hasn't happened at all. Like, I've been paying attention, so I was like, is Lain even like a physical person that you can interact with, or is she just like a projection of the internet? Alice grabbing her hands and holding her proves that this Lain in this scene, at the very least, is a physical thing that you can touch. A physical person, let's not say thing. A physical person that you can touch.
Completely different anime
Right, yeah.
where she goes to grab Lane's hand and just passes
I
through.
would piss myself. Like, I didn't want to say it. I was like, okay, I was going to wait until the very, very end, and then I was going to do the Ruka thing, just like I did in Revolutionary Girl No, where I was like, Lain was never real. If we went the entire fucking series without anybody ever touching her. So this was important to me. Like, I was going to do a whole thing, just so we're clear. I was paying attention to that. Regardless, so completely unrelated to that. To just, this is kind of important on a level of which, at least the Lain in the scene, because again, I think that there are multiple Lains, and they're all kind of the same Lain, but not, right? A very much Holy Trinity kind of thing going on here. This Lain in this scene is real. You can touch her, and you can have a crush on her, and you can be gay and kiss her on this fucking roof. I swear to fucking God, Alice. Anyway. And she should have. So, back to the gay thing, which I just kind of segued into with that tangent. In, like, Japanese media, I've had as you all know, I've had the pleasure of being able to go to Japan a couple times. And my spouse has a couple host families in Japan, because he went to Japan as a student and stayed with these host families while he was studying in Japan. And these host families have kids who are or grandkids who are currently, like, the anime watching age. And so, while I was visiting one of my spouse's host families in Nagoya, I talked to the granddaughter of the mom who was my spouse's host mother. And the girl, the granddaughter, who was around 15, 16, I actually asked her, like, do Japanese schoolgirls act like they do in the anime? Are they all bubbly and clingy and huggy? Or is this just an anime thing? And she looked to me, and she said very seriously, and in pretty good English, by the way, that not really. In the anime, we're not really like that. Sometimes we are. But we're usually not. The anime really exaggerates it and theatricizes it and dramatizes it. Like, you do form really, really close friendships, and you will sometimes hug, but only once you're really, really close. Like, if you've been friends since, like, elementary school until, like middle school, what it would be in Japan. Like, my spouse had to translate that for me, because, like, they don't exactly have the same grades as we do, but basically that's what she meant. Is like, if you're childhood friends until, like, late middle school, you would probably, like, hug and hold hands and, like, be really close. But for the most part, not really. And then, like, she went on, because, like, I was talking to her a lot. She was curious about gay culture in America, and I was talking to her a lot about gay culture in Japan. And she was explaining to me that, like, especially in Japan, this idea that there's this problematic idea where, she didn't use the word problematic, but I think if she knew the word problematic, she would have, that if you are being romantic with another girl, it's just practice to learn how to be romantic with who you should properly actually be with, which is another boy. So your relationship with another girl is rarely, if ever, taken seriously in Japan, even if it's serious, and it's just viewed by the majority and considered just practice. And too many people treat it that way, and it's obnoxious, is what this actual 16-year-old Japanese girl raised in Japan told me. So that's where we're at, is, like, according to this one, and again, just her life experience, so she cannot speak for the whole of Japan, but she's like, just from her experience in school, No, not really, but kind of, but not to that extent. Like, so just from what she told
Mhm.
me, like Alice doing that, like jumping forward, grabbing Lane's hand, etc., is Alice actually acting on actual interest on Lane. That's all. Thanks for letting me have that part. Not a bit.
You gave me flashbacks to when I first started my undergrad, and my roommate who grew up on the coast asked me if I had a pickup truck and a pocket knife because I grew up in Indiana,
Mm-hmm.
and I have neither of those things.
Yeah.
It's like, so do schoolgirls really act like they do in anime? No, of course not. I could have told you that, Jenner.
Yeah, I mean, but I wanted to know from like I want like here the difference between
You wanted to know the
yeah, like
specifics.
the difference between telling somebody who is non-Japanese and knows and actually asking a Japanese person is a Japanese
Mm-hmm.
person will give you that Japanese perspective, right? Whereas a person who
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
historian who just knows will be able to tell you no, this it's really dramatized. And yeah, I knew that already, but I specifically wanted like an actual Japanese teenager's take, and I had the opportunity.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I know you got real different
yeah.
information. I just wanted to roast you for a
Yeah,
bit because I thought it was
yeah, it
funny.
is funny. Thank you. I mean, that was not sarcasm. People listening to the podcast.
The
I have no tonal difference in my
last
voice. Sorry, go on.
last thing I wanted to say about this scene, Lane stares at her hand after Alice lets go of it.
Yeah, gay.
So like,
But
even if you
also,
didn't
she
know
might
about
also be
physical
surprised.
contact being
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
just in case you didn't know about physical contact being a bigger deal in Japanese culture, the creators were nice enough to make it obvious to us that Lane considers this a big deal.
Yeah, it is a big deal. And additionally, it could also be Lane being like, whoa, shit, I can be physically interacted with. And also, holy shit,
Holy shit, I'm real.
yeah, like it could be a lot of things. It's probably all those things together, right? One, wow, that girl is cute and I have feelings for her and she just acted
Pro-
on my feelings and this was weird and physical touch. And two,
Probably gay.
holy shit, I am a physical entity that can be interacted with because nobody has fucking touched me this entire fucking series up until this point. And yeah, so that's where we're at. And also, this was big, even in Japan culturally, for somebody to just fucking grab your hands like that. So that's where we are. Anyway, they should have
All right,
kissed. I'm gonna
Fefner, did you have anything to say?
Bef,
You're the only one that's
Nope.
not talked about this
Fefner,
scene
as
yet.
as another queer person, do you have anything to say about these girls not kissing?
I already said nope.
Damn.
But the next scene is a news report. Uh, the report informs us that the Information Bureau's firewall was cracked and destroyed, and Information Control Center has been hacked. This news report is being sent out at this moment, but please be aware that it may arrive tomorrow, or possibly yesterday. What I love about this is that there's actually a very simple way to phrase what they're saying. They're just saying it might have the wrong date attached to it.
I liked my interpretation better, which was that time isn't real.
Like, that too. Well, I mean, it's not. That's just a known fact. Time is just an illusory perception of human nature. It's not a real thing. It's just how we see certain things. But I like it when um, Lane comes across a problem that's very common in online and digital things, and then just phrases it in the weirdest, most backwards way possible. We then cut to random internet browsing. The folks on 2chan are talking about what happened.
I do
Somebody says,
believe we agreed it was Duchan, yeah.
yeah. Somebody says it looks like it was the Knights of Eastern Calculus, an unknown number of members, engaged in distribution of illegal devices. Somebody else asks about Lain. Lain has no matches on the internet. Um, she hasn't been on the boards lately, and there are already new users that don't know who Lain is.
Newbies don't even know about Lain.
Fucking newbies don't know about Lain. Which I never really got into forums, but I imagine this was a thing that happened on forums all the goddamn time. Just somebody important would leave, and then new people would show up and never know about them, and be like, oh, you fucking newbies.
What? You don't know who Lain is?
You've never heard of Darth Plagueis the Wise? Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, I wanted like they're the gatekeepers on the internet, like those fanboys who like quiz you when you say you're into something. This is like the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you can't be on the internet if you don't know who Lane is.
I think that's a valid interpretation, but I more got the sense of like it feels like there's just been a great change.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh shit, we're getting people who don't know about this important member of our community, even though I don't think Lain knew she was an important character in the community.
Yeah, it's,
I think she was just there.
this is like how members of the forums react when new people join and interact with me rudely. They're like, "Oh, they don't know who Jenner is." I'm like, "Ah, be nice to them. They haven't figured it out."
Yeah, it'd be like if you left and then new people showed up and like, who's this Jenner everybody keeps talking about?
You don't know who Lain is? Didn't you look up in the sky last week?
Yeah, right. Did you not see the naked girl
Also
in the
that,
sky?
yeah, she was on the Jumbotron. She fucking physically showed up on a massively multiplayer online game.
I would actually have to look up if the news report actually said her name. They might not know her name, only that there was a girl in the sky. But I think the news lady actually did
That's
say.
fair.
I do think the news lady actually did say her full name, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to rewatch that episode.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me, and I also don't pay attention to
Mhm.
that news thing, because, like, why would I?
Yeah.
I know what happened, I just saw it.
Mm.
This scene ends with one person saying, I want to ask you something. Are you a member of the Knights? And then the power is cut to that person's computer, which I just like the... You don't talk about the Knights. You even ask, they'll fucking kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Or your computer, just as bad. We then cut to the scene that I have labeled as porno setup.
Go on.
Alva, the delivery guy from episode 2, is here to deliver more computer parts and is unnecessarily leery towards the housewife. I appreciate that in this scene, of the weird computer-obsessed male characters, the turbo nerd that doesn't like to leave his bed has so far been the least horny, and I appreciate that. They didn't go for the coup de grace with that character. They let him have some dignity.
Mm-hmm. People who, hey, KG, you could learn a thing or two from this guy.
He
KG,
tries
Neon
to make
Genesis
small...
Evangelion, I'm calling you out. Sorry, go on.
Who is KG from Ava? I don't remember KG from
The
Ava.
grown-up guy that cool police lady had a crush on, and he was awful, and we all hated him. His name was KG, right? I might have even gotten his fucking name wrong. That's how much I hate him.
From police?
Masako, yeah, Masako, right? That's her name. She had a big crush on
Kaji and Misato.
Sorry, I could. Thank you for look. Yes.
Yes, the 3 Ava pilots: Shinju, Asuko, and Ri. I'm sorry. The thing is, there's also a Keisuke who has a crush on Misato. So I was thrown for a loop.
Mm-hmm.
And like I was already talking about this guy through Ava references because I don't think he has a name in Lain, but he just looks like Alba.
Yeah, go on. I just want to call that dude out. The dude in Neon Genesis Evangelion. This guy's fine. Go on.
But Alba tries to make small talk, but he can't stop staring. And he offers to help in just the creepiest, leeringest way possible.
The
housewife immediately calls him out.
Yeah, it really did feel like a porno script at this point. Like I remember, like just kind of spamming the eyes emoji and go on.
And I can't tell if like he's trying to do that or trying to not do that and failing.
Yeah, I was waiting for the smooth jazz to start and everything. When's the smooth jazz coming in?
The housewife immediately calls him out. In the dub, at least, I remember she says, "Is this just how you try to seduce bored housewives?" And then her kid walks out. She goes, "Okay, gotta go talk to him later." Alba completely folds.
Mm-hmm. No, now I can't fuck her because her kid's here.
Yeah, that's the reason. That's what was wrong with the plan. Mm-hmm. The part that Alba has just delivered has the Knights logo on it. The kid talks about going over to visit a friend, and I do feel kind of bad for calling her the housewife, but that's her. She doesn't have a name. It's just the only identifying thing about her. But she wants her child to just connect to the internet instead of going over to his friend's house, which is the opposite of my parents. And she says the wired and the real world are one and the same. And that's the most we get about the philosophy of the Knights from one of the Knights in this episode, at least. Next scene is with the Men in Black. They tell Lain, "Can you please come with us? This is a request you can refuse. We have no intention to harm you physically." And I made the joke that mentally and emotionally, though, that's still
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
table.
I remember I talked about how that guy, this dude specifically talking to her, is very, very careful with his wording. I didn't do it, but that doesn't mean my friend didn't do it.
There's
Like,
like
it's
nothing
very
in the
much
show to
I'm being
suggest that, but
completely
he's
honest
run
with
with
you
this premise,
in
and it's
that way.
hilarious.
Yeah, in that way in which I'm definitely still not actually like involved and not responsible for it, but since I'm not directly doing it, I can tell you this and I can be completely honest with you. Like, it was giving me those kind of vibes. So, like, you know.
The tall one removes his headset to try and seem less frightening, I think, but that doesn't work because he's the creep we saw in episode 2.
Mm-hmm.
And he has the same piercing blue eyes. Also, I just remembered, I think those headsets are also from Snow Crash, right down to having laser sights on them for some reason. I think the studio just really likes Snow Crash. What do you mean the Snow Crash license fell through? We have all this concept art for the Snow Crash anime we were going to make.
Alright, well, instead it's just gonna be an anime about, I don't know, a girl building a computer. It's fine.
Somebody just it takes a concept drawing of hero protagonist and crumbles it in his hand, throws it in the trash can, upset. Speaking of hero protagonist, we cut back to him rambling. He says, "I don't want to be here. I'm just trying to prove that I can break the barrier between the two. That is, between the real world and the wired," which it's still kind of weird because, like, I don't know what benefit you have from being out in the real world. From what I understand, in Snow Crash, the way the internet is set up is that, like, if you look at a building with, like, if you look at a business with the weird gargoyle headset, you can get to that business's website instantly. Like, there's a reason for this, but that infrastructure doesn't exist in Lane. So he just read this in a book once, and he's trying to do it to look cool. He also shouts, "Let me into the nights. I found your top secret channel." And then he sees an apparition of Lane.
I feel like I've met this guy before. I feel like I've met an unfortunate amount of this guy before.
See, this is why Google Glass didn't take off. Everybody that bought it was this guy.
I don't know if you don't realize how honest you're actually being. Like, because of the socioeconomic class I've been uplifted into, I hung up with a lot of people who like get the smartwatch or whatever just to have like the latest in technology. And the handful of people I know who actually did get the Google Glass are legitimately like this fucking guy.
Oh, no, that's yeah, unfortunately, my undergrad was at a business school. They talked about this. This is why, like, Bluetooth headsets didn't catch on for a long time because it was only being bought by techie weirdos.
Yep.
And so, like, everybody that answered their phone without picking up their phone was some weirdo tech bro that nobody wanted to be like, so nobody bought Bluetooth headsets except for them.
Mm-hmm.
Who's that
This is an
dick?
observable problem.
No, I'm not taking that. No, thank you.
I don't want any part of that.
One of Google's first attempts to, like, test the Google Glass out in real life failed because the guy got thrown out because it looked like he was carrying a recording device on his face. The tech industry does not realize how much of a problem they have with the fact that they don't have any relations management. No HR, no PR, they don't give a shit. Next scene is Lain arriving at the Men in Black headquarters. It's just an empty apartment in a complex. It is labeled
There's,
Tachibana
like, the thing
General
for me
Laboratories.
that I wanted to point something out. I'm not sure if we're there yet though. Is they said they would never physically harm her or force her, but she hesitates in front of the door and they just push her into the room. Fucking liars!
I think it was the short one.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, I'm gonna check again maybe.
We'll never force you, they say, forcing her.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was the short one.
Mm-hmm.
The short one's the mean one.
Mm-hmm.
For what little characterization these two get.
He's the gremlin.
Yes, the sign says Tachibana General Laboratories, Shinbashi Office. Tachibana has come up before, right?
Yeah, okay.
Lane's
Tachibana
computer is a
seems to be
Tachibana.
like a name that shows up
I
a
think.
lot in media now as like a like those like scientists who have gone too far are off, or just like nerdy people in general are almost always last name Tachibana. Like the Sherlock show that we watched, Fafner, Watterson, her last name was Tachibana, or was it like the therapist's name was like I forget, but one of them's last name, like very very smart people often have the last name Tachibana. It's like a reference to something. Where did it first fucking come up? I've been trying to look it up and figure it out so I can
Well,
mention it.
People who go too far named Tachibana. Also, people who don't return to Kamen Rider are called Tachibana.
so in Lain, Tachibana is an Apple reference.
Okay.
Um, the Apple Macintosh was named after a type of fruit. Tachibana is a type of orange.
Okay. I'm wondering.
In English, it's known as the Mandarin orange.
All right, got it. I just a lot of times like because creators are inspired by creators, so like they'll read a work and a thing will be in it, and then they'll reference that thing in their work, and then that work gets referenced, and so forth and so on. And so like this Tachibana thing could be a reference to Apple, but it could also be like one of those bonus double reference things where they get to reference the other thing too. So, like, again, I asked my spouse, because, you know, he is more familiar with this, to see if he could figure out where the heck it came, because, like, no, this is too consistent. Oh, it's like, if you got a really smart, intelligent, genius person who often goes too far, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be named Tachibana. Why? What is it referencing? Help. Where'd it come from? Who decided that was the name? What are you referencing? I'm good now, sorry.
Yeah, in this show, I'm pretty certain it's an Apple reference because everything else in the show is an Apple reference. But inside of the empty room, there is... I'm going to say old man. He doesn't look that old. He's more like slightly older, middle-aged, who is trying to get just this piece of shit computer on the internet.
Relatable.
Very relatable.
He rambles about wanting to keep using this computer because he's used it for so long, but he just can't figure out how to get it connected. And then Lain immediately solves this problem.
Amazing. That's how my parents treated me when I would show up to their house back when I was still visiting my parents. I do want to point out something before we get
this
a
whole
bit too
thing
far, which is you talking about how this is a reference to Apple without referencing Apple made me think of how iCarly has the Pear products instead of the Apple products, just so that they don't have to pay Apple for anything, and also fuck Dan Snyder. Anyway, back to you.
I was going to say, this whole operation, this guy hired 2 dudes to act as muscle just so he could have somebody fix his piece of shit computer. You could have just hired a tech guy.
Though I actually think something more sinister is going on here, but I wasn't sure if I should say it now or wait.
Me too. I'm just making a joke.
Okay, yeah, go on.
Anyways, once the computer is online, it connects to Hero Protagonist's setup, and she sees from his point of view. Hero asks if Lain is a part of the Knights, and the Lain that is already on the screen calls him a moron. I'm worried about how I wrote this down. But Hero Protagonist says, I like the god thing, but I have a better idea. Make me a knight. And after this, we cut back to Lain, who is very visibly shaken by this. Okay, I'm sorry, I was scrubbing through the scene. He refers to Lain manifesting in the sky and getting the kids to pray to her. He says, that was pretty cool, but I could do you one better. Like, fuck off. Reminds me of how super best friends Zaibatsu, Wooly and Liam, the 3rd and 4th members of the group, would frequently encounter people walking up to Matt and Pat and say, how would you like to have 2 best friends play be 3 best friends play? It's like, fuck off, guy. Who the fuck are you? This guy's like, yeah, you can manifest in the sky and convince children that you're a god, but how about this? Like, I don't even want to hear it. I don't care what your idea is. Get out of here. You don't have any ideas. You've stolen everything from Snow Crash. The leader of the Men in Black says that some say that the Wired is not divided by political borders, but there are far too many nonsense-spouting anarchists who think that pranks are a revolution. However, the Knights aren't quite in that category.
Not a fan of propaganda of the deed, I see.
What were you going to say, Jenner?
I was just going to say, I like how, they're, talking about anarchists, whereas I am an actual anarchist, and so, they're not talking about anarchists the way, as an ideology. They're using anarchists as, a term for, pranksters on the internet, who are many of whom are anarchists, but not all of whom are anarchists.
They're specifically talking about the people who act like they're doing a great service, but they really just want to ruin someone's day. It's like calling a prank a psychological experiment. Like, no, you're just being a dick.
Yeah, so they're talking more about 4chan people who I would not call anarchists. Just so we're clear, I would call them anonymous, and I think like
Yeah,
that's what you talked about, right? Is you said that this predicted anonymous. I agree. Um,
yeah, more or less.
yeah, for me, like eventually this scene you'll get to it if you haven't already. The guy has Lane interact with his computer, and it seems to like unlock it. This makes me think that this is all
Hmm.
about like how this guy's trying to get full access to the internet, and the only person who has the key to that is Lane. So this is all like a trick to just get Lane to log in and give him full access to the admin, like the admin controls of everything. So that's not
Hmm.
good. That's all. That so this was all not
Yeah.
very evilness maybe.
Before I go further with the scene, I want to talk about Lane seeing herself on the monitor doing things that she doesn't remember doing. So there was this web series called Alan Tutorial that was a while back.
Oh boy.
Um, okay, so Alice, you know this. Does anyone else know the name Alan Resnick?
Nope.
I don't think I do.
Okay, are you familiar with unedited footage of a bear?
Oh, yep, yep, okay, never mind, I am. I reference that all the time.
He wrote that. He also did one of the Adult Swim infomercials, "Live Forever as You Are Now," where he makes a CG version of himself, and it's weird and funny. Um, but Alan Tutorial starts as a parody of tutorial channels on YouTube where he's trying to do. It's not clear what he's trying to do, and it's also not clear if he's succeeding. And there's some stuff that he does at the beginning, but it eventually switches to like commentary on how YouTube views the channels on its site. Because there is a point where the creator of the channel gets kidnapped and is forced to make more videos, and he ends up pulling up a different video of a tutorial that he never did. It's the same actor, but he's like speaking slower. The camera angle is different, and it creates this weird, unsettling feeling of like you're seeing something that really shouldn't exist unless there are two Allens. And it felt like the same thing was happening for Lane here. Like this shouldn't exist unless there is more than one Lane. Because Lane is thinking I definitely never did that. Yes, Lane starts having a breakdown. She does not react well to seeing this other Lane. The boss says, "I don't know if you're doing it on purpose, but your presence in the Wired is highly unnatural, and the Knights have a special interest in you. You've been in direct contact with the Knights. They want to use you for something, and we cannot let that happen." We briefly cut back to hero protagonist. He says he promises not to let Lane's secret slip, and he says, "It's okay that you follow Deus, but I don't know if I'm ready to believe that God is in the Wired." Because, yeah, don't forget that. Don't forget how the series started.
Mm-hmm.
The series started with Lane trying to find God on the internet. He then sees the three Knights members that we've been introduced to this episode. And then we cut back to the Men in Black. The boss says, "It's meaningless to share my real name. In fact, the three of us here have no names." And he says, "Are you and Lane of the Wired the same?"
Mm-hmm.
What a
And
question.
this, I think, is enough. I think this is enough canon support for me to say that yes, multiple lanes are in fact
Mm-hmm.
canon.
Ah, yes, finally,
There
the
are
bigger lane
actually
theory has been proven correct.
the meaner lane theory.
There's a bigger lane.
There is
There's a
actually
lane that is slightly bigger in some scenes. Join me in bigger lane theory. Sorry.
there's actually concept art for the lanes, and they're labeled differently. So this was something that was planned from the beginning, and isn't just a. Normally, this sort of stuff is kind of a weird crackpot theory, but no, it's canon here. There's more than one lane. But then the boss continues his interrogation. Who are you? Are your parents your real parents? Is your sister your real sister? When is your father's birthday? Your mother's? When did your parents get married? Was it arranged?
Arranged marriage is a thing in Japan, folks. Just so you know, it happens sometimes, especially still in the 90s.
Lane responds that she doesn't know, and the boss picks up again with, "Why don't you know? Have you never asked? Have you never celebrated a birthday in your family? When and where were you born? You don't know? You don't know anything?" And Uh, this also reminded me of something that happened in my real life. Um, a couple years ago, my dad had, I gotta remember the name for it, a trans ischemic attack. The acronym is TIA, and it's usually referred to as a mini stroke. It has all the symptoms of a stroke, but it has no lasting damage. When I took him to the doctor also asked him a bunch of questions to see if he was aware of his surroundings. The problem was, there was questions like, "What day is it today?" Well, he didn't know. Not because he had a stroke, because he never knows what day is it when you ask him. I think the show is going for like, yeah, this is a real problem of like Lain doesn't seem to know any of her family's birthday, but like she's stressed out. You started with the weird questions, then you're asking her these normal questions. Like she's still trying to process the weird ones. This doesn't really prove anything. She might know this, but she might be panicking. But eventually, Wired Lane pops out, and she shouts, "Shut the hell up! Why would I care about any of that?"
Mm-hmm.
The boss says, "If you're here without a device, then the borders are starting to crumble, and we think that's dangerous." Lane says, "That's interesting." Lane then tries to leave. The larger man in black grabs her by the arm. The boss says, "Carl," so he does have a name. So much for not having names. And when Lane tries to leave, Carl says, "You are what's dangerous." But then he allows her
Mm-hmm.
to leave. I would also like to take this time to thank Llamas with Hats for making it impossible for me to take the name Carl seriously anymore. Carl, there's a traumatized schoolgirl in our house.
Carl, that kills people, Carl.
well, I have stalked her for 37 days in a row. Carl, that traumatizes people.
Carl, you can't just do that. You can't just. I mean, it's funny because like Carl is kind of like when I'm playing TTRPG campaigns with GMs who don't put a lot of energy into their NPCs. Unlike me, who
Mm-hmm.
I'm insane when it comes to my NPCs. Sorry, but not sorry. Anyway, when I'm playing a TTRPG with GMs who don't even name their NPCs, I will often name the quote unquote obviously here to um like be the mentor, like your boss character that they put in the thing. I'll just say, oh, their name is Carl. That's just what I do. That Carl is just my this is that NPC, right? And since you didn't name them, I am
Carl.
now calling them Carl. Yeah. And it became a problem in a campaign we were in where the actual main villain of the campaign was named Clar. So we kept getting Clar and Carl confused. It was
Behold the wrath of Carl, Clark. Clark.
yeah. And for me, it was like really kind of funny because, well, the good news is Carl turned out to be a dragon, so we just started calling Carl Spyro. But until then, we were like, "Fuck! How do we tell them apart? Other than one good, one evil." But back to Lain. Sorry, just these little Jenner
yes,
anecdotes.
is the final scene of this episode is the housewife member of the Knights wanting to play video games with her son.
Mm-hmm.
She has very normal, believable, like back and forth banter about actually being good at video games. But then the camera cuts to the computer part with the logo on it, and a trash can above the sink looking burned. And then from that, we cut to hero protagonist who is fucking dead in a ditch.
Well, R.I.P. I guess. Didn't
I
even make it a
guess
whole
Not sure
episode.
what's going on with that.
the I guess the implication is that that computer part was used to murder him somehow,
Maybe.
Maybe someone just
and
punched him and he
that's
fell into a ditch and died. Could happen.
I do like the idea of like they've set up as this all powerful organization, and then like they just sent one of their stronger members to just punch him,
Hmm.
and he just fell over and died. But that is the end of Layer 07. The things that I wanted to talk about, I was able to talk about through the episode. Anybody have any comments? Besides what the fuck is happening?
This
I
Um,
mean, Lane isn't real.
yeah. I mean, hey. Okay, so first of all, we know that at least one Lane is real because Alice has a crush on her and touched her.
I mean, maybe she's just become solid enough. The internet has solidified.
We have three lanes. We got solid lane, we got liquid lane, and we got solidus lane.
Hey, don't forget Vapor Lane.
Oh yeah, we got paper lane.
I like this because we have the main lane that we're following. Then there's Liquid Lane, who is the edgier, meaner one, and then Solidus Lane is the president of the United States.
Yeah. Um, I,
Vapor Lane clipped out of the episodes.
I believe this is the episode I was told by that person was the one where most people are like, okay, I'm done, and they check out. I can see why, but also like it wasn't what like it got hyped too much because of that, right? Like I get that like a lot of
I
things revealed in this episode. There's more than one lane. There's a bunch of weird stuff going on, like a bunch of sinister stuff, and like at this point you have no idea what's going on, and I can see why people would check up. Like I thought this was an episode where like some bigger bullshit came out, like some kind of eldritch horror, right? Bullshit started, and people are just like, you know
or
what?
like
Nope.
or like some like massively triggering thing,
Yeah.
like when your friend said that, I was like, oh god, what could have happened in this episode? And then I scrubbed through and like I don't remember anything that bad happening in this episode.
I mean, it is kind of it is really fucked up that she basically gets abducted by a bunch of scary grown men in black suits. Like that is kind of fucked up, but it's not like
But it's like that's
yeah.
the thing that's going to cause you to drop it this open with some pretty awful things. I mean, if anything, it's just the fact that this is the halfway through the series. Like people are like, all right, I'm halfway through the series and I still don't know what's going on. Guess I'm going to drop, which is valid. But yeah, I was also looking for like a specific thing that was going to happen. Like nothing, no particular thing stood out to me.
Yeah. Again, I think like there's a lot of more creepy stuff. Again, like there's more than one lane. There's like this dude just unlocked the internet by like kidnapping Lain and making her unlock the whole internet for him. Like there's some stuff, some shitty stuff, and there's some weirdness here, right? And also the dude assailing her with a bunch of questions definitely like unnerved me, right?
Okay, yeah, that too.
But nothing so like after watching after watching Revolutionary Girl Utna and Neon Genesis Evangelion,
Ava.
yeah, where so much awful shit happens. I'm just like, how can you say this is like what is in this episode that is not like the episode where spoilers for Neon Genesis Evangelion, Shinji kills another classmate of his, right?
That doesn't happen. He lived.
Oh well, Shinji almost
Bitch.
kills another classmate of him.
He does rip off one of his arms and one of his legs.
Yeah, like basically, yeah, awful. And also, Shinji does kill the actual gay boy who's in love with him, and who I think he loves back.
Who's
Like,
based on Ikuhara.
Yeah, so like, come on now, right?
I can't believe Shinji fucking murdered Ikuhara.
Yeah. Thanks, Shinji. I bet Ikuhara was like, you better fucking kill me. If you're gonna put me in here, you better fucking kill me. I refuse.
You better make it count.
I refuse to. You better kill me in one shot. I refuse to survive this anime. Hold on. Anyway. And then, like, with Revolutionary Girl Utna, where, like, so much fucked up stuff happens. And it's just like the second Utna walks in, again, spoilers for Revolutionary Girl Utna here, people. If second Utna walks in on Anthe having sex with her own brother, I would have just been like, nope! I would have been, you know what? You two deserve each other. Farewell. But no. Also, I would not have been like that. That is just me being hyperbolic. I would have, I would have continued on Utna's journey, but maybe not as dumbly as Utna did to try and get Anthe the fuck out of there. But regardless, my point is, those two animes have some really fucked up shit in them. Another anime that I would actually add to this trio of animes that should be watched is Princess Tutu, and another is Puella Magi Madoka Magica, which is kind of a more recent one, right? Because both those also have hugely fucked up shit. My point is, this isn't really that earth-shattering in comparison to all those, right? That's all.
Right. I just a quick thing. I'm not calling it the trio of animes that you should watch. It's the trio of weird as fuck animes. I do refer to it as a slightly different title each time, but it's the point isn't that like these are must-watch shows; is that they're just really fucking weird. And yeah, Madoka is kind of an honorary member. Madoka kind of makes the quartet. I see the Princess Tutu comparison, but it feels too lighthearted in its weirdness. Like it gets dark. I know I saw the show, but a lot of the weird stuff in Princess Tutu is kind of funny for a lot of it. Like episode 2, Yuto fucks an aardvark. Eater, excuse me.
Yeah, come on, these are very distinct concepts.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that the main reason people drop it this episode is just, well, I'm over halfway through and I still don't get it.
Yeah. I think that might be the main cause for the drop off is like, this is never going to make sense, right? I'm done being
And
invested
we
in
talked
this.
about, like, the reason I've not sent you back to this friend is that we're worried they're going to say, like, you weren't bothered by the spoiler.
Yeah, once I'm done with this, I'll ask them, like, what is actually going on in episode 7 that makes so many people check out. But it will be after we're done watching all this.
But yeah, if that does it, I think we can move on to our ending. Jenner usually start.
Do I? I thought mine is, because mine's usually, like, dumb. Yeah, I guess I can start this time. For me, like, again, I'm mainly focused...
Start your bit.
Oh.
You have a specific bit.
Okay, yeah, sure. Alice, you still with us?
I'm still there.
No, come on. Hi, Alice.
I'm still there. Hello.
As the foremost and only expert we have on Alice's, how did you feel about Alice this episode? How's she doing?
I have an actual answer this time.
Yes, I mean, you haven't ever not had an actual answer any other time, but do go on.
I am torn. My first thought is Alice has gone out of her way again to be very nice. My second thought is Alice initiating physical contact with Lain is interesting because it suggests that Alice sees the two of them as being very close, but I am not yet convinced. I may be later, but I am not yet convinced that Lain views Alice and the way that Alice views Lain, whether that be romantic or friendship. I think that there's a disconnect here, and that Lain or Alice or both will have to confront this disconnect very soon.
Yeah, I think, like, Lane's reaction to this is, do I also like this girl? Not, I'm in the same place of liking as this girl.
Yeah, like Lain is still trying to figure out what it means to really connect with jive with people, and this and Alice already sees them as having done so, and by some definitions they have, but Lain doesn't necessarily get that, and that has to be resolved one way or another. I'm almost as worried about that as
Yeah.
I am about the Men in Black.
It's weird to me that you two are coming so heavily with, like, well, clearly Alice is the one more invested in this relationship. Because from my perspective, Lane almost burst into tears once Alice said, like, we can stop hanging out if that's what you want.
Yeah.
That's true. That is true.
Like,
that is fair.
I see it as more like Lane is. I gotta be careful what I say because I've seen more, and I'm trying to come at this. I'm trying to say what I would have said after watching these 7
No, I
episodes.
think I understand with you.
I'm not.
Like that you're trying to get at is like the disconnect here may not be so much on Alice's side, but on Lane's, and that
Yeah.
Lane's valuing of Alice and Lane's caring about Alice is something that is way more than Alice knows or can reciprocate at the moment.
I think
Particularly.
if I could like Lane has these intense feelings for Alice, but she doesn't even know how to act on them. That's where I would be. Like she
Yeah.
has literally it's like one of those very sheltered kids like I was, right? Who first gets introduced to some like who finally falls in love for the first time, and you have zero social skills, right? You probably autistic or something. I mean, you're a mess, right? And this girl, like you or this person, but in my case it was a girl as well, is just being so nice to you, and it's like you don't even know how to interact with them, and they're interpreting all of your like lack of confidence and confusion and insecurity and just not understanding this shit as disinterest, right? And so they're just like, you know what, I'll just quit. And like, I too burst into tears when the person I had a crush on said that. Because like, no, I don't want you to quit. I just have no fucking idea how to fucking interact with you or how to be social and how to do this in any kind. There's no fucking manual, right? There's no how to be, the wiki how for how to seduce a girl or be,
It's fucking
right?
useless.
Yeah, right? And also I didn't know it existed. Like, there was so little on the internet at the time. And additionally, like, for me personally, I was getting romantic advice from like this horny trans man who was basically speed running me through the entire process. So once it got to the point to put some bite behind all my bark, I had no idea what I was fucking doing, and he wasn't there to coach me at all. So it was just like, hey, hi there, Jenner, here's the deep end. It's me, your mentor, Joaquin. Have fun with your new girlfriend. And I'm like, oh, great, thanks, Joaquin. I appreciate this.
You've clearly never read Slaughterhouse-5. I'm perfectly content on the bottom of this. Cool.
I'm loving every moment of this. It was, I mean, I managed to pull it off. I have no fucking idea how. But yeah, don't do that. But that's, I guess, like, reading what you're saying, reading what Luca's saying, I could see that. I could see Lain very much being so sheltered and so, like, socially stunted that she just has no idea how to even act on these feelings that she definitely has that are super intense, right?
This might be one of the few things. I remember mentioning in the first episode the producers wanted a East-West divide over this show.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted American fans, Japanese fans to fight over this scene, or this show. And I think this scene might be one of those examples. Because Alice was coming from the, like, studied anime fan perspective, and Jenner, you've been to Japan a couple of times, so you knew more about the Japanese perspective, and you applied that, despite neither of you being Japanese. Whereas I was coming from the dumbass American perspective of, like, well, okay, sure, they held hands, but, like, that happens from time to time. Lane's about to cry. Like, you can hold somebody's hand and not have it mean anything romantically, but if you're going to burst into tears because somebody says they're going to stop spending time with you, like, you're either really, really, really good friends, or you're
Really,
in love,
really
or you at least
desperate.
think you're in love.
Yeah,
Yeah.
again, look, you're sitting here in a podcast with three women who are some kind of queer for also women, and we're gonna tell you that holding hands with another girl is something you absolutely cry about. You do burst into tears when you are a girl and another girl takes your hand in yours.
Real talk though, it is weird to me that I did not think about how desperate that her freak out is there, and I'm gonna have to roll back and think about that. I'm probably gonna think about that between this episode and the
She's,
next.
like, physically shaking.
Yeah, because
She doesn't actually
extreme.
cry, but she's really upset.
She seems as upset about that as she does later with the Knights or with the Men in Black guys, and like that's interesting to me. And I don't know. I'm gonna have to let that percolate before next episode. But you got me thinking.
One of the messages in this anime that I disagreed with, and that I still strongly disagree with, is that physical connections are better than virtual, internet connections. Again, I think physical connections are crucial and important, and yes, make them. You do need them because, none of you live close enough to me that if I fell in the tub and cracked my head open, you could come, save my life. So having those physical connections are important. But I still stand by the fact that these internet relationships that I built over all these years are just as important and just as real and just as meaningful. But again, I do think that this show is leaning in on that message, that physical connections are more important and more real than the ones you make on the Wired. And I think that let me finish, please. I think that might be one of the reasons why Lain reacts this way, like on a deeper narrative level than just the I'm a fucking mess lesbian level who doesn't know how to do this level, because like Alice is an actual real flesh and blood connection that she has versus however many quote unquote friends she has on the internet, right? And so that's a precious connection that she does not want to lose. These chuckle fucks on the internet going by, Weed Lord, Boner Hitler, 420, right, or whatever, like they're just whatever.
All these Lain stands.
Yeah, all these Lain stands could just, like, they don't know her and they don't interact with her and they could just disappear.
All these fucking Twitter reply
Yeah,
guys.
yeah. All these reply guys could just fuck off and disappear, and she wouldn't care. But Alice is a real person who kind of really knows her as a person. There's like a reason like why celebrities often date other celebrities instead of non-celebrities, and it's because like those people actually understand them and understand that life. There's a reason why like idols, like in Korea and in Japan and other places, often will just date other idols or other celebrities because like their fans just they can't have the healthy relationship with a fan. That is very exploitative. That's why Pro Jared is a bad, horrible dude who cheated on his elf-wife. Right? You shouldn't have relationships with your fans when you're in that position, right? So in this
Mhm.
case again, like Lain, sorry, has all these fans and people who love her and adore her, worship her, buy her gamer girl bathwater on the internet. But Alice is a real person who actually knows her as a human being, and losing that relationship would be devastating. So I can understand why Alice saying, "Oh, I'll just back off," would be a moment to like scream out and start crying and be like, "No, please," right? Because all I got is these weirdos. Otherwise, right? So that's another layer that could be going on here. Anyway, that was me.
Yeah.
That was serious. I'm supposed to be jokey, but honestly, like I really liked this episode. But I do really hate this message. This message I'm interpreting in this show of these real relationships being more real than your internet relationships. Like I'm deeply offended by them because of how important my internet relationships have been to me in my life. That I really hate when media sends this message of your friends online are fake. Like I kind of just want to crawl over and beat the shit out of everybody who is sent like writing that message into or who like I'm perceiving that message in the show being constantly reinforced basically since it was originally brought up almost every episode, and it's starting to really piss me off. Y'all have literally saved my life. So I'm pretty upset about this. Just as a serious talk, just having you and having our TTRPG campaign every week, right, kept me fucking alive. And this fucking show and these fucking chucklefucks and all these fucking shows who talk about internet relationships are bad and blah 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 like, can go fuck themselves. That's where I'm at on this. Like I don't like that message. I do like that Lain likes Alice and wants to have a relationship with her. I don't like that Alice's relationship and Elaine's relationship is more quote unquote legitimate just because she's a flesh and blood person over these internet people who are just as real. Right? There's probably a real person on the other side of that. So that's a serious Jenna rant here.
Yeah.
Right? Now, whether or not
So we've already been recording for an hour and a
I better
half,
stop.
so I don't
Yeah.
want to get into a
Yeah,
fight.
yeah.
But
Whether or not that's actually what's going on, that's just my statement, right? And we can talk more about it once this series is over. But yeah, um, not jokey answer.
yeah,
And
once the
everybody
series
else
is
can
over,
go
I will be in a
is the
better
best
position
jokey.
to make my
Yeah,
argument.
yeah,
But
yeah. Once
I
this,
do not think that let me talk.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do not think that the statement they're making is that the real world is more important than the internet. It's more like the real world has to exist whether you like it or not.
I look forward to seeing that message.
And you have to acknowledge the existence of the real world even if everything is better on the internet.
I would, and I think that is an important message to send to a lot of people on the internet, especially in the early '90s when the internet felt like magic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Regardless, and so we'll talk about that. And I don't disagree though. I'll now start looking for that message instead. My funny, jokey response to this is that this is again a slice of life anime teaching us a very important lesson about how girls can't actually fall in love with each other. They can only ever be friends.
Anyways, that brings us to the final bit of the episode. What's the plot? Where I ask my co-hosts what they think the plot of Serial Experiments Lain is. So, Alice, based on these 7 episodes, what do you think the plot of Serial Experiments Lain actually is?
I have said, and I will say again before blah blah blah. I think that the arc of this is kind of the apotheosis of Lane, but for sake of
Mm-hmm.
variety, I will also say that this episode alters that a bit by telling us that Lane's apotheosis is obviously not something that is without its detractors. Obviously, the existence of
Hmm.
something like Lane or someone like Lane is something that people would not like. And I think that that is going to become even more of a big deal. And now that I think about it, I realize that there's a possibility that there are things like Lane already that exist, and they may not like the fact that Lane is going to be like, well, them. And I think that is going to be where we are headed.
Interesting.
All
I
right,
Yeah,
Fafnir.
Fefner first. Sorry, go ahead.
What is it,
Yeah,
Jenner?
no, Fefner first. I talked too much already.
We could make the internet
Were you
look
going to
like it.
say something?
I was, but I want Fefner to go first. It's fine.
I was going to say, were you going to say something specific to what Alice
No.
said?
Well, kinda, but
All right,
no.
Faf-
All right, are you done yet?
Yeah, go. Sorry.
Fafnir. What do you think the plot is?
We could have made the internet any look like anything, but we made it look like Lane. Anyway, I don't
I
have that much to add other than just like Lane as a physical human being in general is called into question in this episode. I don't think that's really changed what I think the trajectory is thus far, but I think like we've been questioning it here and there, like what the heck is up with Lane's parents,
Hmm.
and now we're sort of getting a little more uh, into that area of just like what is Lane's life, and also just how much of it is real or fake or whatever.
I will ask this: do you think we're going to get any more Lane's Files episodes?
Hmm. Seems kind of unlikely because this was 7. So yeah, we're getting towards the end.
We're only halfway through.
I know, and it's a short series. We're halfway through despite repeated delays. So, you
All
know.
right. Well, and finally, Jenner, what do you think the plot of Serial Experiments Lain is?
Serious answer at this point. I am completely convinced that we're gonna have a very disappointing, like, inconclusive, nothing. Like, you wasted all these hours of your life watching this and you will never get any answers. And, like, very anticlimactic end to the show. It's just gonna be like, we answered nothing. Thanks for all these hours of your life. Please love Lane. Farewell. That's basically what I'm anticipating. Like, none of this is ever going to get answered. We're never going to know one way or the other if Lane is God or not. Like, none of these jokes that Alice mostly and me a little are making about the Book of Revelation and the Old Testament and the schism and, like, the people who actually know theology in this podcast, like, none of that is ever going to, like, actually happen, Alice. I'm so sorry. Like, it's not.
Jenner, you're giving me Twin Peaks The Return flashbacks, and I do not appreciate it.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen, folks. This is just gonna be a very like disappointing kind of just burp or like fart, like a fart into the microphone end of the series. That's my thought on this. If I'm wrong, I'm gonna be really, really grateful. But I hope I am. But I'm probably not gonna be. They're running out of money, right, to really make this big. I don't know. I don't think we're gonna get any conclusions on anything. Um, or any answers on anything. And the girls are definitely not going to wind up together. So that's my honest answer of what the plot is. Is there is none. It's just hi, this is a very experimental anime where they're just kind of exploring some things and sending some messages and like doing proper sci-fi, and then they ran out of money and support to really kind of bring it all together. That's my theory of what's really going on. Is they wanted to do something and then they kind of didn't ever figure out how to make it happen. Or they're trying to do too many things at once, or it's hard to say what's going on, but like at this point, I want to end this. I'm rambling a bit too much. I'm of the opinion that there's no way to reconcile any of this. So yeah, I'm gonna be curious to see if I'm wrong. In terms of what's really going on in the plot, as again, this is a slice of life anime, and this is just a fun, wholesome romp story about the importance of childhood friendships.
Well, that wraps it up for this week. We will see you all next week when we cover Layer 08. Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye bye.
Goodbye.
Yeah. Again, I am Jenner. I'm gay, and I want to love Lain.